Relationship, one of the most damaging habits that distances us from Allah, yet has become so normalized in our daily lives, is neglecting our Salah. Relationship, and when I say neglecting, I don't just mean completely abandoning the prayer, although that is a serious matter on its own. Relationship, I mean delaying it until the last moment, praying without focus. Relationship, or treating it like a ritual that needs to be ticked off, rather than the divine gift and lifeline that it is. Relationship, Salah isn't just another task on the to-do list. It's the connection that keeps your heart alive, your faith nourished, relationship, and your soul anchored in a world full of distractions. Think about it for a moment. When the call to prayer is made, relationship, the Lord of the worlds, the one who gave you life, breath, and every blessing you enjoy, is inviting you into His presence 5 times a day. Relationship. Yet many of us brush it aside because we're too busy, or too tired, or not in the mood. But do you know what's really happening? Every time we neglect that call, relationship, we're telling our Creator, whether we realize it or not, that something else in our life is more important than Him. Relationship, that's not just a missed prayer, that's a subtle shift in our priorities. And over time, relationship, it erodes the heart in ways that are dangerous but often invisible. Relationship, there's also a psychological and spiritual wisdom in the timing of Salah that many overlook. Fajr aligns with the quiet clarity of dawn. Relationship, setting your mindset for the day. Dawn and Asr break up the rush of work and remind you to pause and realign. Maghrib brings closure as the day fades. Relationship, and Isha settles your heart before rest. Skipping or delaying these prayers doesn't just mean missing out on reward. Relationship, it disrupts a rhythm that was designed to protect your soul from the chaos of modern life. When we consistently disregard that rhythm, relationship, we wonder why our hearts feel heavy, why our minds are restless, and why our connection with Allah feels distant. Relationship. And here's the deeper truth. Salah isn't for Allah, it's for you. Allah doesn't need your prayer, you need it. Relationship, it's your shield against sin, your anchor in confusion, your therapy when life overwhelms you. Those few minutes spent standing, bowing, relationship and prostrating aren't wasted time. They're moments that realign your purpose, calm your anxieties, relationship, and remind you who you truly are, a servant of the Most Merciful. If you've been struggling with your prayers, don't delay change. Relationship, start with one prayer on time. Even if your concentration isn't perfect, keep showing up, because the moment you make Salah your priority, relationship, you'll find your entire life slowly aligning. Your discipline, your relationships, your sense of peace. Neglecting Salah distances you from Allah. Relationship, but every sincere step back toward it brings you closer to Him than you can imagine. So take that step tonight. Relationship. Because every prayer you pray is a chance to say to your Creator, Ya Allah, no matter what. Relationship, you come first. Another habit that silently poisons our hearts and relationships is backbiting and slander. Relationship. It's one of those sins that creeps into conversations so casually that we don't even notice it anymore. You're sitting with friends, relationship, a family member calls, or a colleague steps into the room and suddenly the topic shifts to someone who isn't present. Relationship. Did you hear what she did? Can you believe what he said? And before you know it, words are being thrown around. Words that, relationship, in the sight of Allah are heavier than mountains. The Prophet described backbiting with such striking clarity. Relationship, he said it is mentioning about your brother something that he would dislike. And when someone asked, relationship, what if it's true? The Prophet replied, if what you said is true, you have backbitten him, and if it is false, relationship, you have slandered him. Just think about that. Even if the information is true, relationship, even if you're just being honest, speaking ill of someone in their absence is still a wound you inflict, not only on them but on your own soul. Relationship. The spiritual danger of this habit is profound. Backbiting doesn't just harm the person being spoken about, it corrodes your heart. Relationship, it feeds arrogance, because deep down gossip is often about elevating ourselves by lowering someone else. It also erodes sincerity. Relationship, because instead of focusing on improving our own flaws, we find comfort in highlighting the flaws of others. Over time, this habit hardens the heart, relationship, making it harder to feel empathy, harder to forgive, and harder to see the good in others. And then there's the social cost. Relationship. Backbiting destroys trust. It fractures families, weakens friendships, and poisons communities. Relationship. You might think your words are harmless because hoots just talk. But what starts as talk often grows into suspicion, resentment, and division. Relationship. And when you're the one being spoken about, and it will happen, you feel the sting of betrayal. That alone should make us pause and reflect. Relationship. If we wouldn't want others to discuss our faults, why do we so easily discuss theirs? The discipline to stop backbiting begins with awareness. Relationship. Catch yourself in that moment when the conversation veers into dangerous territory. Change the subject, excuse yourself, or better yet, a relationship, speak well of the person instead. Remember, every time you resist the temptation to backbite, you are protecting not just your deeds but your heart. Relationship. And here's something powerful to remember. The scholars say that when someone backbites you, they're essentially handing you their good deeds. Relationship. Imagine standing on the day of judgment, desperately in need of every reward. Relationship. And finding that someone's gossip has become a source of salvation for you. Why give away that blessing so easily? Relationship. So the next time you're tempted to talk about someone, pause and remind yourself, words are not light, they carry weight. Guard your tongue. Relationship. Protect your heart and choose silence over sin, because the believer's dignity lies not in exposing others, but in protecting them. Relationship. Dishonesty is another habit that quietly chips away at the soul, often without us realizing how deeply it affects our faith, our relationships, and even our sense of self. A lie, no matter how small, is never truly harmless. It plants a seed of corruption in the heart. Relationship. One that grows each time we choose convenience over integrity. Whether it's exaggerating a story, hiding the truth in a business deal, relationship, or breaking a promise because it's not a big deal. Dishonesty slowly distances us from the purity and clarity that a believer should embody. Relationship. The Prophet said, truthfulness leads to righteousness, and righteousness leads to paradise. Relationship. A man keeps on telling the truth until he becomes a truthful person. Falsehood leads to wickedness, relationship, and wickedness leads to the fire. These words are not just a moral guideline, they're a psychological reality. When you lie, relationship, you create a conflict inside yourself. Your heart knows the truth, but your tongue says something else. Relationship. That internal contradiction eats away at your peace. It forces you to remember who you told what. It makes you live with a subtle fear of being exposed. Relationship. And it slowly erodes the trust others place in you. And dishonesty isn't limited to speech. It shows up in the small choices we make every day. Relationship. Cheating at work, underpaying an employee, manipulating a deal, or making promises we have no intention of keeping. These are all forms of deceit. Relationship. In the moment, it might seem like a shortcut to success or a way to protect yourself, but what it actually does is invite barakah to leave your life. Relationship. Wealth earned through deceit doesn't bring peace. Relationships built on lies don't last. Relationship and a reputation stained by dishonesty is one of the hardest things to repair. There's also a deeper spiritual dimension here. When you lie, relationship, you're essentially saying that you don't trust Allah's plan. You fear that the truth won't protect you, or that honesty won't sustain you. Relationship. But the reality is, truth may cost you in the short term, but it will always honor you in the long term. And Allah loves those who are truthful. Relationship, not just with others, but with themselves. When you can stand in front of a mirror and know that your word is clean, that your dealings are honest. Relationship. There's a kind of freedom and confidence that nothing else can match. If dishonesty has become a habit, the way back is through small relationship, intentional steps. Start by owning your words. Speak less and speak only the truth. Honor your promises, even the small ones. Relationship. And when you slip, because we all do, repent sincerely and make amends where you can. Because every time you choose truth over deceit, relationship, you are aligning yourself with the path that leads to Allah's pleasure. So the next time you're tempted to twist the truth, Remember this, relationship. Lies may protect your ego for a moment, but truth protects your soul forever. Relationship. Another habit that pulls us away from Allah, often so subtly that we don't even notice, is indulging in haram entertainment and relationships. Relationship. In today's world, temptation is just a click away. The phone in your pocket, the laptop on your desk, relationship, the television in your living room, all of them are gateways. And while technology itself is neutral, relationship, the way we use it can either draw us closer to Allah or drag us into a cycle of spiritual numbness and regret. Think about it. Relationship. Hours spent scrolling through content that clouds the heart, watching shows or listening to music that normalize sin. Relationship. Or engaging in conversations that lead to inappropriate attachments. These things don't seem harmful in the moment. They even feel harmless. Relationship. Maybe even normal, because everyone else is doing it. But what they do quietly and consistently is erode your sense of shame before Allah. Relationship. The first time you cross a boundary, you feel guilt. The second time, less so. And soon the guilt disappears altogether. Relationship. That's when the heart has been desensitized, and that is dangerous. The same applies to haram relationships. Relationship. It often starts with just talking, just being friends, or just one harmless message. But we forget that the heart doesn't know how to just feel. Relationship. What begins as something casual grows into an attachment that is difficult to break, leaving behind pain, regret, and a weakened connection with Allah. Relationship, and deep down we know it. We know when we are crossing lines that He has placed for our protection. Relationship. There's a reason Allah warns us against coming near zina rather than only forbidding the act itself. Because He knows that every small step, every message, every glance, every meeting is a path that leads to greater harm. Relationship. And the same wisdom applies to the content we consume. What enters your eyes and ears doesn't just stay there, it settles in the heart. Relationship shapes your thoughts and influences your behavior. The solution is not to isolate yourself from the world, but to be intentional with your choices. A relationship. Replace harmful entertainment with beneficial content. Fill your time with things that nourish your soul instead of feeding your desires. Relationship. And if you find yourself in a situation or a relationship that you know displeases Allah, have the courage to walk away. It will hurt for a while. Relationship. But that pain is temporary. The peace that follows is lasting. Every believer struggles in this area to some degree, and Allah knows that. Relationship. What matters is that you don't normalize the sin, that you keep fighting, keep seeking His forgiveness, and keep asking Him to strengthen your heart. Relationship. Because the moment you make a sincere effort to cut off what displeases Him, He replaces it with something far better. Clarity, peace, relationship, and blessings you couldn't have imagined. So ask yourself today, is what entertains you costing you your connection with Allah? If the answer is yes, relationship, it's time to let it go, because nothing is worth losing His pleasure. Relationship. One of the most dangerous habits a believer can develop, and one that often hides in plain sight, is pride and arrogance. It's subtle, relationship, almost invisible at first, because it doesn't always show up as loud boasting or obvious ego. Sometimes, relationship, it's just that quiet voice in your head that says, I'm better than them. I know more than they do. I deserve more than they have. And the scariest part is, relationship, arrogance is a sin that can live deep in the heart while the outward actions still appear humble. Relationship. The Prophet warned us about this with a striking statement. Relationship. No one who has an atom's weight of arrogance in his heart will enter paradise. Just think about that. An atom's weight. Relationship. That's how seriously Allah views the disease of pride. Because arrogance isn't just about how you treat people. Relationship. It's about how you see yourself in relation to Allah. At its root, arrogance says, I don't need guidance. I don't need correction. Relationship. I don't need to humble myself. And that's the same attitude that caused Iblis to fall. Pride can creep into every aspect of our lives. Relationship. It shows up in wealth, where we start to believe our success is solely because of our own efforts. Relationship. Forgetting the countless blessings and opportunities Allah placed in our path. It shows up in knowledge. Relationship, where we begin to belittle others who know less, as if guidance is something we earned rather than a mercy from Allah. It shows up in relationships, where we refuse to apologize, refuse to forgive, or refuse to listen, because we can't imagine that we could be wrong. Relationship, the psychological damage of arrogance is profound. It isolates you. It keeps you from growth. Relationship, because growth requires humility, the ability to admit you don't know everything, to recognize your flaws. Relationship, and to accept that others have value too. Spiritually, it hardens the heart. The more you feed arrogance, the less room there is for sincerity, relationship, gratitude, and empathy. The cure, though, is both simple and difficult humility. And humility isn't about putting yourself down or pretending to be less than you are. Relationship, it's about recognizing that everything you have, your intelligence, your success, your beauty, your opportunities, are gifts from Allah. Relationship, not proofs of your superiority. It's about seeing others as equals in dignity and worth, regardless of their status or mistakes. Relationship, if you feel that arrogance has taken root in your heart, start with gratitude. Relationship, thank Allah every day for what He's given you and remind yourself how easily it could all be taken away. Spend time with people who keep you grounded. Relationship, and most importantly, keep asking Allah to purify your heart, because true humility comes from recognizing how much you need Him. Relationship, so the next time pride tempts you, pause and remember the earth you walk on will one day cover you. Relationship, and the only status that will matter then is the one you earned with Allah. Relationship, another habit that deeply displeases Allah, and one we often overlook, is neglecting the rights of others. Islam is not just about praying, relationship, fasting and reading Quran. It's also about how we treat the people around us. Relationship, your faith isn't complete if your worship is strong but your character is weak. If you pray 5 times a day but speak harshly to your parents. Relationship, if you fast in Ramadan but cheat your employees. If you recite Quran beautifully but mistreat your spouse or children, something is deeply wrong. The Prophet has said, relationship, the best of you are those who are best to their families. That means the truest measure of your faith isn't how you present yourself in the masjid, relationship, but how you are behind closed doors when there's no one to impress. Are you kind to your parents even when you disagree with them? Relationship, are you gentle with your spouse even when they frustrate you? Are you patient with your children even when they test your limits? Relationship, because these are the relationships Allah will question us about before anything else. And it doesn't stop with family. Relationship, neglecting the rights of others, extends to neighbors, colleagues, employees, and even strangers. Relationship, how many of us ignore the basic courtesy of a smile or a greeting? How many of us take more than we give in our relationships? Relationship, or dismiss people who can't benefit us. These small acts might seem insignificant, but they reveal what truly sits in our hearts. Relationship, there's also a danger in thinking that worship alone will save us while we continue to wrong people. Relationship, the Prophet A described a person who will come on the day of judgment with mountains of good deeds, prayers, fasting, relationship, charity, but will find all of it taken away because they insulted someone, hurt someone, or wronged someone. Relationship, that's the weight of people's rights in the sight of Allah. From a psychological perspective, relationship, neglecting the rights of others damages not only them but also us. It creates relationships built on fear or resentment instead of trust and love. Relationship, it isolates us because people eventually distance themselves from those who consistently wrong them. And spiritually, it darkens the heart. Relationship, making acts of worship feel empty because you're trying to connect with the Creator while continuously hurting His creation. Relationship, the way forward begins with awareness. Reflect honestly on how you treat the people in your life. Seek forgiveness from those you've wronged. Relationship, even if it humbles you, make small, consistent efforts to honor people's rights. Return what you borrow, fulfill your promises, and speak kindly. Relationship, these small actions carry enormous weight with Allah. So ask yourself tonight, who in my life have I neglected, hurt, or taken for granted? Relationship, Because on the day of judgment, it won't just be our prayers and fasting that matter, but how we honored the trust of those Allah placed in our care. Relationship. True faith is not just in your worship, it's in the way you treat the people He created.